Well, welcome to the 700 Club, and thanks for joining us. There's been a brutal clash on the Temple Mount today that injured more than 300 people. Jerusalem Arabs, Palestinians, and Israeli riot police have been fighting for days.
In Gaza, Hamas is firing rockets and sending balloon bombs into Israel. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem on the consequences inside Israel and the ramifications worldwide.
Monday's clashes are the continuation of riots for days between Jerusalem Arabs, Palestinians, and Israeli police. The unrest began over a land dispute in a Jerusalem neighborhood, escalating into more violence over the weekend during the Night of Power, the holiest night of the year for Muslims.
In recent days, we've been witnesses to violent riots in Jerusalem, influenced by inciting groups. We will not allow any extremists to destabilize the calm in Jerusalem. We will enforce law and order decisively and responsively.
This is all happening during the holy month of Ramadan, often associated with calls for jihad and holy war. Palestinian Muslim groups, including Hamas and Fatah, have called for martyrdom and terror operations during this month. An international group of Muslim scholars supported by Turkey and Qatar issued a sermon on Friday calling for violence, jihad, and self-sacrifice, praised heroic jihad operations of the jihad fighters in Palestine and the young Palestinians deployed on the battlefront in Jerusalem. On Israel's southern border, Hamas terrorists launching missiles into southern Israel, as well as sending incendiary balloons, sparking dozens of fires. The violence seems spontaneous, but according to Itamar Marcus of the Palestinian Media Watch, it's not.
It was the Palestinian elections, and tragically, Palestinians vote for whoever they see as leading the terror war against Israel.
The riots are also making an international impact. Demonstrations in Jordan called for the government to break its ties with Israel. Turkish President Erdogan calling Israel a terror state, and the U.S. called for both sides to exercise restraint. The riots and demonstrations are also affecting the attempt by Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett to form a coalition government. They need the support of Ra'am, an Arab Islamist party. But the current violence between Jews and Arabs makes it difficult for Ra'am to join the coalition, or for Bennett and Lapid to invite Ra'am to be part of their coalition. Mansour Abbas, the head of Ra'am, warned on Saturday, Al-Aqsa is a red line. The aggression toward the holy site and its worshippers is unacceptable and offensive. On Monday afternoon, another potential flashpoint. Today is Jerusalem Day, when Israelis mark the reunification of the city during the 1967 Six-Day War. Authorities are allowing the march, but not allowing Jews on the Temple Mount, and altering the route to prevent potential clashes. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, this is more evidence of the long-standing conflict over Jerusalem, over the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, over what amounts to a continual effort on the part of Palestinians to drive Israel into the sea. There was great hope back in the Bush administration that once free elections were able to happen in Gaza and the West Bank, that there would be peace, that there would be a movement to a two-state solution. What happened? They elected Hamas to run things in Gaza. They elected a terror group to do that. And that was the result of a free and open election that was supervised by the U.S. And it is absolutely incredible to me that they would elect a terror group. But that's the reality on the ground. For anyone that holds out hope for a two-state solution, well, the other side has to recognize that they want a second state. And they don't. What they want is a single state that is controlled entirely by Arab Muslims. They want to drive the Jews to the sea. That is what they want to do. So let's take them at their word. And when we look at the situation and realize Erdogan, what's he want? He wants a reestablishment of the Ottoman Empire. He wants Jerusalem under the control of Turkey. Why else would he weigh in on this and incite violence? You look at these headlines, you need to know the history. We've got something for you. The 54th anniversary is coming up on Monday of the reunification of Jerusalem. This is back in the 1967, the Six-Day War. The movie is called In Our Hands. It's a documentary showing what happened from the point of view of the Israeli soldiers who reunified Jerusalem. And the title, In Our Hands, is the famous radio broadcast, The Temple Mount is in Our Hands. There's also a DVD extra showing the tremendous victory of the Israeli Air Force over the Egyptian Air Force, and it'll help you understand the current headlines. The more you can know about Israel's history, their long struggle for independence, the long struggle for a Jewish state, and then the battle over Jerusalem in the Six-Day War, you'll understand today's headlines. It's yours for a gift of any dollar amount. To get it, all you have to do is call us, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go to cbn.com/inourhands. Well, in other news, as American forces are drawing down in Afghanistan, a horrific attack in Kabul has shaken the nation. The target? Young schoolgirls. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. At least 85 people, mostly female students, died in a weekend attack on a school in Kabul. Another 147 are wounded. Grieving families are burying their loved ones, some parents still searching hospitals and makeshift morgues. Saturday, a car bomb exploded in front of the Saeed al-Shahada school. 2 more bombs went off horrifically as scared students fled the building.
I was sitting in a shop when first of all this vehicle exploded. I rushed to the site because school students were coming out of school. Suddenly, a second explosion happened over there. I saw wounded victims everywhere.
The community is made up of Shiite Muslims from an ethnic minority. It's been attacked in the past by the Sunni terrorist Islamic State group. At least one government official is blaming the Taliban, which is denying responsibility. The Taliban has stepped up attacks across the country after the United States announced it's pulling all military forces out of the country by September 11th. Well, here at home, the Biden administration says it's all hands on deck to restore a pipeline which delivers nearly half of the fuel supply to the East Coast. Cyber attacks shut down the Colonial Pipeline. Its 5,500-mile network carries gas, diesel, and jet fuel from Texas to New Jersey. Federal officials say an Eastern European criminal organization known as DarkSide appears to be responsible. The group has a long history of ransomware attacks in which hackers shut down a company's website or computer operations until it agrees to pay millions of dollars. The White House drafted an executive order on cyber warfare, which would create a series of digital safety standards for federal agencies and contractors that develop software for the government.
We have seen attacks on critical infrastructure over the past 5 years, but nothing of this size and scope, but also kind of foretells this is what life is likely to be like in the future.
Officials are hoping to get the pipeline back up and running before shortages create a spike in prices. Overnight, gasoline futures jumped more than 3% to $2.22 a gallon. That's the highest since May of 2018. Well, consumers are facing high prices everywhere, from food to household appliances, even things like razors. Overall costs have gone up by 2.6%, with some items jumping more than 10%. As the economy recovers and businesses reopen, demand is running high, but there are bottlenecks in the system, including finding enough truck drivers to transport key materials to factories and construction sites. This, as the latest government figures show, American businesses added only 266,000 jobs last month, far fewer than the 916,000 added in March. Unemployment also ticked up just over 6%. However, analysts point out the problem isn't enough jobs, but fewer people going back to work. Well, Regent University is sending out graduates to fill some of those empty slots. The school conferring more than 2,500 degrees this year. At their virtual commencement ceremony this weekend, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called on the graduates to carry Christ into the workplace.
This past Saturday, Regent University celebrated its 41st commencement ceremony. Graduates were celebrated virtually as they watched from their homes. Each graduate received a graduation package in the mail containing gifts to help them celebrate. The ceremony began with a powerful singing of the national anthem by Regent alum Joy Wyndham.
What so proudly we hailed
Pat Robertson, founder and chancellor of Regent University, presided over the ceremony. The keynote speaker was former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Every one of you will need the strength of Christ. You will need the strength of Christ in you to achieve your goals and to live in a country where you can exercise your right to worship your God as you see fit.
Regent offers over 150 degree programs and concentrations in its 8 graduate schools and undergraduate program. It has one of the top-ranked online bachelor and master's degree programs in the country. This year, over 2,500 undergraduate and graduate degrees were conferred, the largest in Regent history. Graduate reflections were given by Jessica Grove Herrera.
The path didn't look like what we thought it would at the beginning. It took twists and turns that were challenging, but in the end, we found that we could face our challenges head on.
Similar to last year, this year's celebration wasn't preferred. Still, each individual graduate was honored for their hard work. Hannah Grace Rue received her Bachelor of Psychology degree and says she's excited for all God has planned for her.
And so it's kind of like it says in the book of Esther, perhaps you've been called for such a time as this. Not saying there's anything special about me, but rather special about all people who have been called.
The graduates were charged to fulfill Regent's mission of Christian leadership to change the world and reminded that all things are possible with God.
So whether it is abased or whether it's abounding, however your life takes you, I want you to, as my charge to you today, I want to tell you, you can do all things through Christ that strengthens you.
An exciting time as these graduates head out into the world. Gordon?
It's a very challenging time as they head out into the world, but with that challenge comes great opportunity, and with Christ, you can do all things. Congratulations to all the graduates. I know God is with you, and be blessed as you head out into your career.